Okay. So the purpose of what we were doing, with these exercises, as I said before, is to begin to unblock some of our blockages, because um, uh, the belief is, Buddhist belief anyway, is that our mind and our energy level, the energy that runs through us, the wind, ride together at the same time. So when that energy is not running properly, then the mind is out of balance. When the mind is out of balance, the energy. So as for example, when you get very upset, something gets you angry, we start to almost hyperventilate like that. But our real nature is calm and clear. That's what the real nature of our awareness is. Why do I say our awareness? That's our mind. What our mind is a continuous stream, a flowing stream, like a river. You never can catch it at the same place again. It's always flowing. And its nature is to reflect, is to be aware. We don't know that. We don't know that because we've never been taught that, in the West. It's never, there's no class on that that's been given to us. Only thing that's been given to us, come to our class. If you come to our class, you get to go to the next class, and you go to the next class. At some point, you'll be able to get some degree, and you'll be able to make your life happy by buying whatever you need to buy. But whatever we buy doesn't guarantee happiness. Happiness is actually the real state of our mind, but we don't look for it. We don't feel it. So instead, we keep ourselves busy grasping for whatever we can, and we try to push away anything that we don't like. That process makes us feel alive. The problem is, who is us? That's where the problem really lies. The us that we think there is a wrong concept. Okay? So if we think back, if we look back in our life, look back when we were young, when we're very young, before we became very complicated and built up this whole concept of who I am, and built up this entire network of what I like, what I don't like, and basically built-in limitations. Our mind is limitless, but our mind doesn't know it's limitless because it's mixed up, it's confused. So we use the meditation in order to begin to look and sit and feel ourselves, and start to feel our openness that's actually there, the spaciousness within our mind, and openness that's a part of our nature. And we begin to be able to understand who we are physically, mentally, energetically. If we become aware of it, there's nothing to be afraid. Now, it was made famous by Kennedy, but I think it was Roosevelt who said there's nothing to fear but fear itself. Very true, because that fear is a concept. What are we afraid of? Anything we're afraid of is not in itself worthy of being afraid of. Not everybody is afraid of this. If we were afraid of dark when we were little, and we get older, we're not afraid necessarily of the dark. Maybe we are, but this becomes, concepts and limits of who we are and what we're able to do or not do. And so, because of that, we continue to live within our own wrong concept of our limited world, and we don't pay attention inside. Look inside and see what's actually existing. Okay, so really, in Buddhist thought, what's existing, what's known as Buddha nature, what that means is, it means Buddha's not Buddha was a guy that was around 2,600 years ago, sat and people followed him and they sat like us and did some meditation. And then afterwards others called them Buddhists and they do Buddhism. But what Buddha really means is, Buddha means fully awake. We are not awake. We're asleep. We're unconscious. We're just moving like like the ants down on the ground that move and put together the hills. We're just moving, but we never get anywhere really. We're the dog that that chases the rabbit at the dog races. We never catch it because we keep grasping for something, not actually grasping for reality. So the ability to sit, with oneself, allows us to begin to see. We've got two things we begin to realize. We begin to recognize. We begin to wake up to what our relative nature is, and what our self-imposed and temporary limitations are, because we don't want to go beyond what we're able to do yet. So we learn to start working with ourselves because we can feel our own life, our own energy, and we know I can do this, but not to go beyond and do something more. And we begin to work with that. But the most beautiful thing is finding that pure beauty that is inside of ourselves. That real, pure, intrinsic nature that exists within us, that's always within us, every moment. So every moment we're looking somewhere else when it's always inside of us. It's kind of like the poor beggar who's got poverty and is not happy, can't find anything, doesn't have food, and maybe even a little bit blind, can't see that well, and finds a lottery ticket. Finds a big lottery ticket, but he doesn't even know he's got the lottery ticket there. We don't realize, so we keep looking in the wrong direction, and we keep limiting ourselves. So what is the idea of ourself is not what we think it is. Take ourselves back. Take ourselves back to when we're young. Remember when you're a little kid, you have a very free mind, with creativity. Some of you might, be able to remember sitting back there and imagining yourself as a princess and things. That's not what I would look at. I would look more, maybe I'd be some king, or something. But the point is that there's a creative aspect of our mind that we begin to lose because we don't stay in touch with it. So the beautiful creativity that exists right now within ourselves, we can feel back to a time when we had some really nice joy, something. Maybe it was, who knows, maybe it was seeing somebody we haven't seen for a long time. Maybe it was having a child. Maybe it was getting married. Maybe, it doesn't matter what it was, but we have times where we experience joy. If that joy did not exist already as part of our nature, no outside condition could make that come about, could never make that seed open up and develop. You have to have two things. You have to have something there, and then you have to have a secondary condition to make something work. So nothing could bring about those feelings of joy. What does that mean? That means we are living with joy every moment, but we're not looking at the lottery ticket. We're looking at our plate with no food on it. We don't understand because we don't look within ourselves to feel what's part of our real nature of mind. And besides that, we also need to be very, very clear where we are in our relative nature. Our relative nature, our ultimate nature is we have a fully awakened state within ourselves. Our relative nature is that, okay, we've got a lot of baggage now. We've been around, we've put some years on, we're carrying a lot of bags and things with us. But those bags are not part of our nature. That's why earlier in the meditation I said, reflect like a mirror. The mirror reflects. It doesn't say, oh, I want to reflect that. That looks good. That looks bad. It just reflects what comes in. Our awareness just reflects. We create concepts of what we think on top of that. When our mind is aware of something, when we come in contact, any moment we come in contact, we immediately go through a real fast, quick type of, without not even a millisecond. Oh, I don't like that. Because we've already built up. We've built up the thought, and we've built up this energy. This is what I am. This is what I have to be, and we don't look to see beyond that. So we stay stuck inside this. But we all know that anything that we look at is not in itself ultimately the answer. It doesn't bring us back that true happiness, because it's not getting to the source, basically. It's overestimating. So we spend every second of our day overestimating and underestimating. Either something is not worthy enough, and so I don't like it and I want to get away from it, or something else is better than I think it is, and so I go and I grasp after that, and we lose touch with what we have. So when we begin to work with our natural state, we begin to see. We know that sometimes, whatever the situation is, we find ourselves in a situation where we're very happy because, who knows, it might be that we're on vacation and things. You don't know what it is, but, we've come in contact with nature somewhat. It might be, whatever works for us. It might be oceans, it might be mountains, it might be desert. Doesn't matter what it is, but we feel that nature, and then it somehow makes us feel our own nature. So we actually slow down a little bit. We actually quiet down a little bit. And what happens is, because there's not this immense, intensity and speed to get at something else and get away from where we are, we begin to go with the saying, relax, smell the coffee, See what's around us. There's beauty around us every moment, in every instance, basically, and we don't see that. That's why I always say with the meditation, letting everything begin to, calm and quiet. So the mind is always moving at this intense pace. But once we see that the nature of our mind is actually calm and clear, very calm and clear, like the bottom of that ocean, from the bottom of that ocean, then anything that moves around it doesn't disturb it. It's totally calm. That's always there. That's always within us. We just have not trained. So when we want to train, it's basically like, if we want to train to run a marathon, we begin by training by running a little bit, and I don't know, maybe we're able to run 2 miles. Again, we have to know our limitation. We run 2 miles, we build up some strength. The next week we can go to 3 miles, to 5, and we basically begin to train ourselves, because we knew our limitation to begin with. And if we paid attention to it, we didn't hurt ourselves. If we tried to run the 26 miles the first day, we probably won't be running that marathon. We probably hurt ourselves. That's knowing our relative condition. That's where we have to know who we are, where we are at a time. We begin to work with ourselves, work with our energy. It's kind of an interesting analogy, because if you ever listen, and I'm not a runner, I don't like to run, but if you ever listen to runners, they begin to run, and then all of a sudden they say, wow, at the 15-mile mark, I got a second wind. There was no second wind. It was a change in consciousness. It was a change in awareness. They had been training all this time to get at certain stages, and at a certain point their mind let go of the process that, oh, I still got 12 more miles to go and the road's kind of rough on me, and that concept's kind of dropping. All of a sudden it's like it's kind of like the movies, with Star Wars and stuff. It goes you're all of a sudden your consciousness, your awareness is looking at things from differently, because it's got some kind of unlimited. You've went beyond your limited concept of who you are, what you could do. So beyond our limitations, beyond our self-made limitations, is always there for us to to be able to access. So how do we get at that? How do we understand where we are at that particular moment? That's the process of letting go, of surrender. That's the process where anything that arises within a moment, there just becomes a, more or less an openness, and welcome it in. Like we were sitting here now, I always say you sit there, you sit down and you feel something in your leg. And because you've got this eye, you label that, oh, I've got pain in my knee. I've got pain in my lower back over here. And what happens? I'm fighting. I'm pushing. I want that pain gone. I want the tightness going. I want to push it away. When the trick is, accept it. When you go beyond the I that doesn't really exist there, that's basically there, that says I've got pain. When you go beyond that pain and you just go into where that energy is, and then you realize, hey, wait a minute, that's my energy. Good or bad, that was me who labeled it. We know there's people out there that enjoy pain. You ever hear about some of them that could enjoy they enjoy pain? Why can they enjoy pain? Because it's whatever programming. We have programmed ourselves into this, what things are, and without giving us the chance to see that there's something more than that. So we don't see things as they are. We don't see ourselves as we really are. And so because of that, that trick is, each moment, can you let go? Now, the very interesting thing is that, as we were talking a little bit ago, that when you're angry, your wind energy, you're all frantic and things. Now we're sitting, we do meditation, and the mind is starting to become calm, clear, like the nature, like the water. The water, when it's being stirred up by the waves and the winds, is murky. You can't see. You go down into the calm, clear, and that's settled. It's calm and clear. That's what's always there. So we begin to sit in that subtleness. So what happens after that? We're sitting in this kind of quiet state. Well, now we're a little bit farther down in the ocean, and we're able to see some fish moving around and different things. And all of a sudden our mind starts to work again on a more subtle level. Hey, well, I don't like those fish. I don't like this. I don't like that. And so what happens is that in that moment you got involved in the duality of I and this and that. And so maybe if I like the way those fish look, I want to pull them into my world. And if I don't like the way they look, I'm going to push them away. And so while we're sitting there, now we're sitting, and it's actually kind of comfortable, but because I'm sitting quieter, now on a more subtle level, I can start to feel something else kind of bothering me a little bit. There's a little bit of uncomfortableness inside there. The real uncomfortableness is that process of not being in that moment by moment, being in the presence every moment. It's the pushing away, it's the push and the pull. So our mind, by nature, is not being peaceful because it's grasping something, it's rejecting something, or it's ignoring something. There can only be those three. really to begin with, the basis. The ignorance is what ignores because it's foggy and doesn't know. The grasping is, basically, what I try to pull in closer to myself. And what appears to me to be threatening is what I push away. Threatening doesn't mean it has to be threatening and that it's trying to hurt us in real hard sense. It's just something, well, I don't like that. And something, I think I'd like something better right now. I don't want this vanilla ice cream. I want chocolate ice cream, So can we change that consciousness? Can we get an extra, can we get some kind of a second breath? Can that happen to us, like in the example of that runner? Of course it can, because there's nothing to be afraid of. We sit with ourselves and we begin to see that whatever life has to throw at us, however experiences come about within ourselves, that is the actual, the Buddhist term for that is, it's like the fertilizer for waking our wisdom. As long as we avoid it, we're not learning anything. But when we learn to look at it and see there's nothing to be afraid of with this, and begin to work with that, that ignites the clear mind. That ignites the wisdom mind. That's what begins to wake us up. Those instances, those experiences are what all of a sudden open up, and we feel open. We don't feel tight. We don't feel constricted, because we begin to see that we've been seeing things in the wrong way. It's like seeing somebody who's been trying to harm us when they've actually been trying to help us all along. All of a sudden, we begin to see that there is nothing to reject from whatever we do. We can sit down with ourselves and we can deal with whatever comes up from our past that pops up, because that's what happens, it pops up. But if our mind stays in that clear state, in the quiet state, it can see it, and it can recognize it, and it can let go of it. If we think, oh, I can't let go of it, I'm terrible, I'm a bad person, that's all, I'm a bad person, I can't be happy, I can't, because that I, which is a wrong concept of what we really are, instead of a fixed I that exists on its own by itself, we begin, to be able to see through that. That fertilizer has allowed us, by not being afraid of what comes up inside of ourselves, finally realize, hey, something, I'm okay. I've got these particular problems, but they're all workable. I can work them. None of us are beyond working on ourselves. None of us. There is nobody that is. Because that nature has always existed within us, and it cannot be destroyed. That nature cannot be destroyed. That energy, that mind goes on and on and on and on, basically. And when it begins to open up, and when it begins to awaken and begin to understand, everything begins to balance. Okay, I could sit there and say to you, while we were sitting there doing some of this breathing, meditation, when we were doing this with the channels, or doing, the channels are also related to, to masculine and feminine, so the right and left side, and one has to do with anger or aversion, and the other one has to do with desire. I could say, you're purified. You are. We could stop right now. You're purified. But the problem is, we don't believe it. So that's where the practice comes in, because we have to begin to recognize what we've been doing, what we've been experiencing. We need to be able to begin to work, with that process. If we work with that process, then what has been known as our limited energy. Oh, I'm kind of too tired today. I can't do anything because it's blocked. Our energy is blocked someplace. I don't know where it's blocked somewhere. That's why we did some of those different things. Open up some of those energy. Open up the channels and things. All of a sudden, we can begin to heal ourselves mentally and physically. Can be healed. Even the physical parts of ourselves can be healed. Will they be healed? I don't know. That depends, that depends on us. Will they be? But we can make them start to feel better. We can make our physical feel better. We can make our energy level feel better. We can let our mind begin to feel better, because you know what? That's our nature. That is our real nature, not the garbage we've been conditioned ourselves and everybody else has conditioned us to believe. And so this allows us to go beyond, this limited life that's basically, going to bury us, before we've woken up on any level. So now we say, okay, well, all right, I can work with that. That's not so bad. Hey, dark is not that bad. And we begin to see our inner light. There's actually a meditation that's done. There's dark retreats, for the reason because that brilliance, luminosity, is truly part of our. Well, look. How many of us have had where we've almost, like when we're falling asleep, or we've had an accident, or the people that feel they've had near-death situation, and they see a flash of light, because it's jarred them in a sense. So we get jarred, and all of a sudden, we get broken out of that concept, and we begin to see, there's possible light, within our nature and things. So all of the things that we begin to label and put into, this is what I'm going to go after, that's what I'm going to push away, and this I don't know yet, I haven't decided. It's like a new person. I haven't decided, do I like them or not like them. They haven't done anything to me yet. So that's that ignorance, which is the first level of fogginess, before the ignorance becomes one that knows wrongly, because then it says, oh, that's the way that situation is, and if I'm in that situation, I just can't be happy. Wrong. Why is it wrong? Because if you investigate, if you go deeply into it, it'll clarify. You'll be able to see. The level of seeing exists within us for that to take place. So there's this kind of brave, warrior-like comes about within us, that begins to say, I can deal, with these situations. And I'm not going to hide from them. And when I say situations, the outer situations are all neutral. They're all neutral. Some person's going to say that's good, and someone's going to say that's bad, or whatever, and things. Those are what we put on them. It's us that perceives them. So it's always in our own mind. It only exists, within our own mind. That's the way our mind, interprets it. And as it grabs that and kind of, imprints it, it's like you go to the passport thing and they stamp your passport. We keep putting a stamp in. This is me, that is that. And that creates that energy. That creates, in Buddhist terms, that formation becomes karma. That's what our karma is. We've locked ourselves within the chains of karma by saying, every time I experience this, it's not good. Every time I experience that, it's good, but wait a minute, it's not as good as I think it is. And so we do something else, we grasp for more. So the practice, begins with working with ourselves, working, with the meditation. In actuality, at the very level, it's like running that marathon. At the very beginning, it's probably pretty difficult, even running that first mile or 2 miles. It probably doesn't feel really good. The first moments of beginning to sit down and relax within oneself, is is when all this stuff is coming up and there's this battle going on that it's pushing and pulling and da 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 da. But when we begin to actually do it more, that's why we begin to then, feel that space a little bit and say, wait a minute, I went through this. You're not tricking me again. This is actually not as bad as I think. I'm not as bad as I think I am. And we can begin to have compassion for ourselves. We begin to live with ourselves. We began to feel what our discomfort is, what our pain, what our type of neurotic behavior is. But we can go beyond that, because that's not truly part of the nature. The mirror will reflect, but if there's dirt on the mirror, it doesn't reflect very good. It doesn't reflect clearly. You look into the mirror, it doesn't reflect very well. But the best is the mirror and that dirt are not one. So you can take the dirt off of the mirror and the mirror can reflect. The karma, the deluded thoughts, all of these things that we've developed within ourselves are not really part of our real nature. And so in fact, when they come under scrutiny, when we put them under the microscope of kind of clearer awareness by sitting quietly and just looking into them very deeply, they disappear because they don't have any existence. Where on the other side, when we look deeply at our awareness and the pure side of our being within ourselves, that part is always there. It's only being fogged over. Who are we? Are we the person we are now? Are we the person we were when we were 4 years old? We're neither of them. We keep changing, but we're not what we think those are, but we begin to, develop it. Everybody creates, this formation of who I am, and everybody else has their own idea of who I am. I mean, it's always different, but everybody has that. These become what's known as knowing wrongly. That's the basis, the kind of darkness, the ignorance. But when we open up and find the light, within ourselves, we can begin to see not only is there hope, there's far more than hope. And not only is there hope, we don't have to look that there's hope tomorrow or at the end of this meditation. There's hope within every instant of the meditation. Every place we're at within that stream of consciousness, we started, we sat down at this time and we're sitting there, we're sitting quiet. Each time in there, it's not this next moment, every time in there, there's a possibility of getting the real glimpse. The clouds, clear up. And we see the rays of the sun. The rays of the sun are always there. It's not like all of a sudden they're there, we put them there, all of a sudden they're always there. The rays of that luminous quality of our mind is always there. Yet these clouds of our, deluded thoughts and habits are what fog that. So we begin the process of cleaning those, in a sense. Okay, we begin to get to the state of letting our mind begin to recognize who it really is. And every once in a while, all the clouds open up for a very quick second, and that flash of lightning takes place. Lightning, enlightening, awakening, full awakening, not being unconscious each moment, being fully conscious of our being, of ourself, of our life around us. So I think that's probably good enough for now. And you're welcome if you have any questions, and if not, that's okay too.
I'll venture for a question.
Sure.
So you're basically saying we don't exist the way we appear to the mind. So how do we exist? Maybe you can give us, how do you exist experientially, Scott?
So how we really exist is so basically part of our nature is change, impermanence. When we understand impermanence, we understand each moment we're changing. We don't think we're changing every moment. So that's a teaching of the Buddha, who teaches like that. We talk about every moment, moment by moment, things are changing. We're changing. So whenever we think who we are inside there on that state, and then believe that to be some self that sits inside. I always say that it's like it's like having a control center. So there's a control center that thinks there's some Scott that exists by himself that's fixed, and so every time he experiences something, he's going to truly believe he either likes that or dislikes it or doesn't. And so that continuous thing that takes place is knowing wrongly. When we understand that we exist, but how we exist is within a impermanent, changing, pure state, that we have this Buddha nature, within ourselves, that's awakening within us at every moment, then we begin to see what we really are. What we really are is we are actually that fully awakened, that fully aware Buddha. That's what we really are. But it's like the example inside a lot of the text use the example of finding a pure diamond. And then that diamond too, like the mirror, it's got stuff on top of it, but it's not oneness. You take that off, and you see what the real nature of that diamond is. So what we are inside of us is this continuously changing, type of wisdom, wise awareness that can begin to deal with any situation that arises and not have to report back that like there's somebody. So if we meditate and we try to find where is Darren, you cannot find Darren no matter how you take apart your body. It's not within your body. And then it's not within your mind. Your mind is always changing. So was the same mind, that awareness, that you're aware of yourself when you were 6 years old and you went to a swimming pool? Or the Darren that was 8 years old and was playing baseball or something out in the park? None of those are are any real Darren. Darren is a label that we put upon ourselves, just like we put a label on, this is a table. Nowhere in this is there ultimately a table, but conventionally there is a table that we put together with pieces of wood and stick it, and then we label it that. If it was a self-existing table, then we could say maybe it has self-existing, it's really a beautiful table. But that's what we do. We say beautiful table, ugly table, because we think it's something that exists on its own, rather than depending on all those pieces, and at the very end, depending on my mind to label it. So the label we put upon our stream of consciousness is the wrong label. We need to be able to see what the real nature of ourself. That the real nature of ourself is that fully awakened and state of pristine awareness that's always there. And so that state of awareness deals with life differently. The one that's got this this place where it reports back to for everything, that just reinforces, the same. We just keep recycling the wrong concept of ourselves and wrong concept of the world around us. So everything we come in contact with through our ears, our nose, our eyes, our taste, our touch, all of that goes through those consciousness, the ear consciousness, nose consciousness. At very first, for a very quick moment, there's a very quick, just pure awareness of what we see or hear. Then we start to think, oh yeah, well, that's kind of, I like it or don't. That looks like this or that looks like that, and I can't enjoy this beach because then I remember that beach over here was like this, and we start to pile up on top of it. So I don't know if I answered you or not, but that's
story.
Yeah. Well, it's not my story.
It's the way you're conditioned since you were little, where your parents always told you, like, what are you thinking about? Think about this. You always have to be busy. You have to have an opinion about something. Like when my wife says, "Hey, what do you think about that?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. Like, am I supposed to have an? It's okay not to have one, and it's okay to just sit still and not chase thoughts. But we're so conditioned to chase thoughts.
Yeah, the best one, which I've told the story before you've heard, was when I was in India in early '70s. And I'm sorry to bore some of you that have heard this before, but it's such a great story because my friend, we got off a train. We had just come from the big initiation, Kali Chakra initiation from the Dalai Lama in 1973. And we were traveling, and we got off this train, but we didn't know where we were. And so there was a policeman standing here. Well, he said, "Let me go see." So he walks up, and he says, "Is the train station that way?" And the guy goes like this, and my friend starts. So I said, "Wait a minute, hold on a second. Did Russia just bomb the U.S. last night?" He goes. He couldn't just have no opinion. He had to have an opinion. Okay, I mean, the thing was that he could not know. So even though he didn't know English, he had to pretend he knew. We always have to come up with something, like Felix was just saying. We always have to come up with something, okay? And so we don't get to see, the purity of it all. There's a teacher that I studied under that passed away, I think it was like in 1971, but in San Francisco, Suzuki Roshi. And, he has this book, Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. It's talking, again about that, it's like the first instance of seeing something. It's bring yourself back into that, first instance, we see something, but then, all this other stuff starts to happen and take place. There's a kind of beginner's mind if you just leave your mind fresh and open, in a sense. Each situation is different, but we want to compare it to that situation and this situation, and so we don't get involved. One of the best things that I took from him was, sitting, meditation, and he had us, we're sitting down and we're doing, the Zen meditation, and he said, sit like a Buddha. So that stayed with me my entire life, because I recognized sitting like a Buddha wasn't necessarily just being in that physical position, but by recognizing we actually are Buddha, being there, within that moment. We don't believe that, so we're not. I had a friend that was with me, in San Francisco, and I remember having a thing with him where you remember Jay? Okay, so with Jay, and we're sitting, and I'm putting myself sitting in full lotus, sitting there and stuff. He says, I could do that. I said, well, you can do it, but you won't do it. He said, no, I can do it. I said, yes, you have the potential to do it, but because if you don't understand you can do something and actually do it, then you're mixing up, basically. So the point is, yes, we can do something. We can realize our kind of things, and we can realize our Buddha nature within any moment. But instead, we want to fall back to the concept of who I am now. This is me, and I have to act like this, and I have to be like that, and I can't enjoy myself. And so, this is recycling over and over and over again, stamping that, and that's what doesn't allow us to to really begin to recognize ourselves, because it goes beyond intellect. Intellectually we can understand, but if our intellect is if we're very good, if we're very sharp, actually the intellect, the pure intellect can work. I always say that, when we're driving down the street and we see that mirage on the ground, and because our mind realizes that's not really water, so I don't have to veer off and hurt myself this way or veer off that way. I realize it's just a mirage. Even though I still have the habit of seeing that as water, I know it's not water. So as we come in contact with things in life, we begin to still see them the way that we've been conditioned to see them, but we don't totally believe it. So there's some intelligence that's growing inside there, to deal with life situations without life situations controlling us.
This is kind of like letting your mind be free, right? Is that what I'm getting out of it?
Your mind is...
Like letting your mind be free, right?
Yeah, your
That's
mind.
kind of what I'm getting out of this.
Yeah, your mind in reality is free. Your mind is free. That's exactly right. Your mind is free, but we don't see it. I'm sorry, I'm going to bore a couple people here, but I'm going to tell one of my best ones that I love. You remember the old show Star Trek? Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to relate to what I'm saying to now. In Star Trek, Spock was one without emotions, and he would sit and meditate, and he was with Captain Kirk, and they had him locked up, but they weren't bars. There were nothing you could see, but they couldn't get out. So Spock sat down, did some meditation for a second or two, and he said, "The walls are not there. There is not really something, that's jailing us. There's no jail there. It's our own mind. As soon as we let go of it, it can dissolve and we can walk out." So the strength to what we give to things doesn't allow us to see the actual total freedom. Our mind is formless, and it has the nature of like space. And so because of that, that's why people can, all of a sudden, they don't know why, but they can, you can be in some other place and you can actually see something happening. None of us do that because we have no time to look into any of that. We're just programmed in what we're doing.
We're chasing thoughts.
So when you understand that your mind is far greater than what you really think it is, that you're much more than what you are, that gives you hope. That gives you a spark. That gives you energy to then investigate a little bit more. You investigate a little bit more and you start to feel a little bit more. You start to see a little bit more about your relative nature, about what makes you up in their condition now and what you can do to go beyond that. And you begin to also, at the same time, you have the possibility of glimpsing your true nature. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.